This program is brought to you by Pussy Magnets.
Put a midge on your friend with a pussy magnet.
Welcome, my lovely lumps. Or should I say lovely labs? I'm so thrilled to have you here in the Labia Lounge to yarn about all things sexuality, womanhood, holistic health, and everything in between. Your legs. Can never help myself. Anyway, we're going to have vag loads of real chats with real people about real shit. So buckle up. You're about to receive the sex ed that you never had and have a bloody good laugh while you're at it. Before we get stuck in, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording this, the Menang people. It's an absolute privilege to be living and creating dope podcast content on Noongar country, and I pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. Now, if you're all ready, let's flap and do this. Oh God, is there such thing as too many vagina jokes in the one intro? Whatever, I'm leaving it in. It's my podcast.
Don't panic, you're not broken. Your sex education was a piece of shit. Get your flaps out and pull up the couch. It's the Labia Lounge.
Hello, my labial ledgehammers. Welcome back to the lounge. I'm pretty pumped because we're going to be covering a topic today that I've been meaning to jump in on for fucking ages, actually. And so I want to cover polyamory, alternative ways of relating, non-monogamy, ethical non-monogamy, things like that. So different ways that we can structure our relationships that aren't just the sort of stock standard monogamous relationship, basically. Not for everyone, not everyone's cup of tea, but definitely something worth chatting about and exploring. So today I've got my friend Zulu Flow, Zion. I mean, is that what you want to go by? Yeah?
Oh, that's my name, so sure.
All right, great. Love it. And oh God, let me get into my notes. I got to get
How
your bio
are
up.
you?
Let me give you
you
the rundown on Zulu.
All right. It's so good to see you.
Shut up. All right. Hey, we've already done that. Don't behave like I'm just completely ignoring you as a human being. Like, this is a podcast. I want to tell people about you so that they understand a bit of the context of why I've asked you on to chat about this. So Zulu is a freestyle master. You should hear the guy rap. Recording artist, leader coach, mindfulness expert, adult and organizational development strategist, events specialist, and mentor to many. Damn. Zulu is genuinely heart-centered, empathic, yet a no-nonsense facilitator, and I can attest to that, with 17 years experience in the coaching industry, and he's worked with thousands of individual clients. And basically so I guess it wasn't in your professional bio, but just a bit of context for people. Ever since I've known you, so probably, I don't know, 9 years or something crazy, you've always been in non-monogamous kind of configurations of relationships. You sort of tend to do things a little bit differently. And you used to be a dating coach as well. So you kind of, got a lot of different hats and a lot of experience in that realm of relationships, intimacy, love, dating, and also non-monogamy. And even though it's not something that Zulu does sort of in his like private coaching so much, coaching on like poly dynamics and stuff, I just thought, great, perfect, old friend, we can chat about this sort of stuff. So welcome, Zulu. Stoked to have you here.
Stoked to be here. Thanks for that amazing intro. As you were sharing that, I'm like, it's not really the identity. I see a lot of people in the industry, in the scene, if you will, coaching and personal development and like sexuality and embodiment and tantra, all of this stuff I was doing. Like I was learning tantric practices and like when I first learned Qigong, actually, I was learning alchemy, internal alchemy and, channeling sexual energy and utilizing that from the age of 16, 17, 18, 19. And I'm old. As you said, I've been in the coaching industry 17 years. I was feeling old. So like as it became more mainstream, all of that sensuality, sexuality, tantra, all this kind of stuff, I was already like over it, if you will, like not over it, but it wasn't
You moved on to greener pastures.
Or just what didn't, it, sex sells and it's true and that's cool, but it just was not my biggest juice or not my biggest excitement or not my biggest inspiration. And I've never marketed myself as the tantric guy or the sexuality guy or the non-monogamy guy, you know what I mean? Even though that was some of my skill set back when I was doing dating coaching, it was more along the lines of authenticity to yourself, or becoming more aligned in who you are, and designing the lifestyle you want, designing the social circle you want, and living more in your truth. And this is, just more and more I've delved into it, the more that has been the case. But I do have the skill set, as you mentioned, so I'm happy to have this conversation. I feel like we could definitely offer a lot of value to the listeners.
Totally, yeah. And just because it's not part of your sort of like professional accolades at the moment, or something that you're focusing on with clients because you have a different focus these days, it doesn't mean you don't have a wealth of knowledge and a whole lot of personal experience to chat about. And it's the same deal with me. Like, I've definitely dabbled in this area, but very much not an expert. So I guess my desire for this episode, or my aim, is to kind of, just to speak to what you were just saying about helping people find the most authentic expression to them, and create and craft the life that really, really, they're designed for, that will help them thrive. I feel as though with relationships, we have this cookie cutter, like, standard, like heteronormative, like monogamous dynamic it's just like basically, what comes from that is then the nuclear family. And it's just very, it's the common and sort of mainstream and culturally accepted and even expected way to relate. And I feel like a lot of people don't fit into that category, and don't necessarily feel as though it's the most fulfilling or the most natural thing for them to be in a monogamous relationship. Some totally do, and that's great. But I just wanted to offer some alternative perspectives, and I guess explore different ways of relating that are, still really rewarding and can still be done in a really healthy, mature, amazing, fuck yeah way. That maybe, just to maybe open some people's minds, show how things can work and can be done depending on you. And I suppose we're just going to talk a bit about I guess explore the topic from our own experiences. So does that sound good?
Yeah, it sounds like fun.
Rock and roll. Well, before we get stuck into the ins and outs, because I've got a fair few, pretty standard questions I'm going to shoot at you, but I would love to just, I guess, give a bit of context for those that aren't familiar with polyamory, before I ask you about your sort of journey with it. So can you give everyone a definition of what is polyamory? Like, what can that look like? What are some other types of poly or non-monogamous relationship styles that you're familiar with? Just to give everyone some.
There's so many, so many different variations. But I guess I've never actually, funnily enough, identified as polyamorous from the beginning. It didn't quite fit the box. I'm not a fit in a box kind of person in the first place, but I did hear the term many years ago and it didn't feel right. But in terms of like how I have gone about relating, especially, with like sex involved in my intimate relationships, it has the closest that has got is like, I enjoy engaging in non-sexually exclusive dynamics, so like that non-sexually exclusive or non-exclusive dynamics has been my primary hat that I have worn. So I guess the monogamy would be you're sexually exclusive with an other, one other, mono, and the word amory, polyamory, obviously, poly, many, amory, love, many loves. If you look at that term, I guess every parent who loves their children is polyamorous, right? You don't have two children and then love one more or less than the other one, or you might, but if as a parent, I know that the love just expands with as many children as you have. So totally. I guess the what you're asking, like the polyamory is, the general consensus is that, you can have all sorts of, you can have thruples, you can have one person might even be in a sexually exclusive relationship with one person, but the other person might not be. There's all sorts of different dynamics that come from just the I don't even like the term traditional, because it's not even been that traditional until marriage was invented,
Totally. Yeah. Agriculture. I mean, yeah, sex at dawn, get around it, everyone. Well, I suppose I just wanted to distinguish between open relating or just sort of having a hoe phase and like sleeping around and having sort of sexual connections and having an emotionally invested relationship. Because for me, like all of the different expressions of polyamory generally require an emotionally committed partnership or relationship with more than one person. That's like how I define it. And I suppose within that you can have, like you said, thruples and triads and this and that. And there's too many configurations to go into, and it has become like super buzzwordy and trendy. So like Siebes. But just to give people some context, if they've like never ever heard of it, polyamory is where you have multiple committed partners. And it's consensual and everyone knows about it, and it's, it's all above board. And there are ways of doing this in a healthy, kind of gracious, loving, empathetic, functional way. However, I feel like it's not done very functionally a lot because we don't have it modeled to us and we don't have resources or education around it. And I guess the sort of relationship dynamics in the mainstream that we see in media, that we see modeled to us from a lot of our parents, it's just like pretty toxic and dysfunctional. So a lot of us can't even fucking do monogamy, let alone sort of branch out into this whole realm of having multiple partners. Like one is hard enough, I find. So anyway, talk to me about your journey and experience with like, being someone who prefers to relate in non-monogamous ways. Like, have you always done that? Do you feel as though it's like the most natural way for you to be? Have you tried to do monogamy? What happens? Like, give me the rundown.
Yeah, well, it's funnily enough, I must have been 15 or so the last time I was in when I entered into a monogamous scenario. That's the only way that I knew of. This is the only way that I'd seen things done, modeled to me. You have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, whatever it might be. In my case, it was a girlfriend. And then you be with them and no one else. And that's kind of is what is presented to us in media, in, storytelling and fairy tales and so on and so forth, on all the the Little Mermaids and Disney stuff and all the kind of stuff that you might watch, but funnily enough, around that same time, actually, it was after that. It was actually after that relationship. So I was in a relationship with someone from school. I must have been in grade 8. And then I was in long distance relationship because I moved from up Byron Bay down to Sydney, and I was like still in a relationship. I was like, oh, we'll still be partners, we'll still be boyfriend, girlfriend, and then we would call each other every day kind of thing, and then I found out that that partner had cheated on me with like multiple people. I didn't find out until I spoke to one of my friends who told me, who like told me, but I didn't believe them. Then I found out it was true. And that like, I was like, oh, I was shattered, that broke my heart. That broke my, my trust, was real broken. More so like the lying part, like the part of not being, like, I felt like I had failed in building a bond strong enough for trust to be broken, or just trust to be like, I felt like I was like, oh, what have I done wrong that you don't feel safe enough to just share everything and anything with me? And then that kind of, actually I'm getting my timelines a little bit messed up, because even before then, about that same year when I was trying to figure out how to relate and how to, what is love, what is liking someone, what is attraction, all of these things, what are relationships even, this was questions I was asking myself around grade 7, grade 8. And I was doing a lot of study, like I was reading books. I actually, something I don't know if you know about, Frey, I don't know if I've shared this with you, but when I was, it must have been from the age of 11 or probably 11, 12, until I was about 16, around that, just maybe 2 years after that relationship. I had my sights set on being a marriage counselor. That was my path. I was like, I wanted to be a marriage counselor.
Oh, wow.
The reason
Weirdo.
being all around me, all I saw was like dysfunctional, like models of relating, of, partnership and just relationships in general, like my dad and my mom, my stepmom, stepdad, all this kind of stuff. All I saw was very poor examples, like lots of abuse, lots of DV and stuff like this. And I was really heartbroken to see that. And that I was like, oh, why can't these, authority figures just get along? And this is kind of what I had a wish for, like, to be able to hold space for, the healthy relating. And so that was what I was going to be. So I'd already was studying and reading lots of Gay Hendricks stuff, lots of different, I was reading Scott Peck stuff, like different stuff from that age. So I had an idea of relating and what love and what is attraction and, these kind of books. Really, I was delving into them quite deeply, and I would have had about 20 different books that I was reading around that time. And so that when I say, like, it might sound strange, but I was like, oh, I didn't even feel heartbroken in the sense that I was like hurt the fact that, someone cheated on me. I feel like, oh, they're a shit person. I actually called them up when I found out, and I said, look, awesome work, like, enjoy yourself. I just really feel like I've let you down, and let us down, that I haven't created a space for this honesty, this openness, just to be just a given, if you know what I mean. And I was around that time where I vowed never to have this kind of closed relationship again, because I was like, I don't want that. I want to be able to share everything and anything with my lovers, with my partners, with my intimate others,
So have you ever felt jealousy or insecurity around when your partners are with other people, or is it just not part of the way your brain works?
Yeah, for sure. It's strange. It's strange, the dynamic of jealousy. Like I'm really curious when it comes to different emotions and stuff, and I want to know what they are. And I just nerd out and find out different perspectives. I'd feel them in myself and just like to explore them and look at them from different angles. And, and I've felt jealousy. I had a time where I was like, oh, jealousy is like a useless emotion. And then I felt times, let me dive into that and get, put myself in the shoes of a jealous person. And I've had it where I've been caught off guard and I found myself acting in jealous kind of ways. And it was very early on where I this idea of compersion, which is, taking joy in the, that's kind of what I felt initially. So to answer your question, initially I felt actually what I didn't even know the term was compersion. I felt joy in that partner's, the fact that they were enjoying themselves. And I was like, I felt awesome. Like, as long as you're doing what you do, like what you love to do. And that felt like the normal way for me to feel, I didn't feel any like, I didn't feel any like you're bad or you're wrong, or I just felt, okay, cool. That's obviously, did you enjoy yourself? Were you looked after? Were you having fun? Awesome. Again, it was more, I feel like I let us down or I let them down. But
So do you think the jealousy was a conditioned emotion?
do I, from myself, do you mean? What's the question?
Yeah, like if the jealousy then came in later, do you feel like it was a conditioned emotion that crept in if it felt so natural to feel compersion to begin with?
I don't believe so. I just believe that different dynamics will elicit different feelings and emotions,
Yeah.
and different sets and settings, like I've been a long time psychonaut at the same time, and set and setting will have its effects, no matter what kind of biochemistry is at play, whether that be, emotions are the biochemistry of the body, right? So, it's all going to be just depending on the dynamic, there might be, I was caught off guard by jealousy at some point. I'm like, I don't really enjoy that emotion, don't really find it coming up. And then all of a sudden I'm finding it coming up and myself acting in ways that were unnatural to me, like, and surprising to me. And then, okay, cool. That's what jealousy feels like. Cool. And I've had times when I've purposely gone, all right, let me just try that jealousy thing on and feel what it feels like. And every time I have felt it, and it hasn't been enjoyable, hasn't been feel like a resourceful, hasn't put me in a resourceful state. So yeah, I'm not so, like, at times I've been like, I don't really do jealousy. You know, I'm a big believer we can put we put meanings on our experiences, you know, and it takes, whether if an emotion takes you off guard, catches you off guard, like it could be joy, it could be exasperation, it could be total euphoria, whatever it might be. It's like, okay, cool, how did I get there? I'm always kind of asking myself how I got there and what meaning did I put on that for that to occur. So
how does it usually go down with partners? Like, have you had a tricky time sort of finding people who are willing to engage in non-monogamy with you? Like, do you meet people and you're really into each other and then they find out that you don't do monogamy and they can't handle it? Like, how do you navigate that with new partners?
Well, it's always a first and foremost, it's I lead with it, like, and I have done for 20 years now, you know, so it's not surprise. It's not a surprise. It doesn't come out of nowhere. You know, it's like, if you are going to be relating with me, I can guarantee that I'm going to be with other people, and I'm going to feel attraction for them. And that's not always the case. Like, it doesn't mean that I can do monogamy sometimes too, if that's what the setting calls for. And, you know, like, again, I don't like to put myself into a box. I can relate sexually exclusively for sometimes if that's the case too. Like, it's, so an easy answer would be for you, it's like, it's a rarity. You know, if you grab 100 people, it's probably less than 5%, you know what I mean? Who'll just be like, oh yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
You know, that's perfect. although actually, if you had said that 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it would be maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So maybe nowadays it's 5 to 10.
Totally.
So it's getting more and more who are like, actually, that is perfect. Because for me, the big piece on that is that it's I'm demonstrating open communicating from the get-go.
Yeah.
Know? And that for me is what an open relationship means. You know, it is fully open, and closedness leads to pain and self-deceit, which I believe is the root of all evil. You know, I don't think money's the root of all evil. I think self-deceit is the root of all evil. And when we study extensively all the things that we are as humans, you know, and how we operate and what our physiology is doing, what our psychology is doing, and so on and so forth. And we come to the realization that actually some of these ways that we've gone, you know, the way that society has been designed and is not actually very natural. You know, I think it's the most honest thing for myself anyway. And again, so I don't try to force people into doing something that is uncomfortable for them, because I told you before, you know, that facilitating the realization and actualization of potential is my biggest joy, you know. So I don't want someone to feel or to try to do something that isn't enjoyable for them, you know, and doesn't expand them and doesn't make them feel great, you know.
I guess, like, for me, I at one point felt as though I think I read, you know, Chris Ryan's book, Sex at Dawn, and maybe like The Ethical Slut, and, you know, just the sort of cardinal texts around non-monogamy. And I was like, oh my God, monogamy is the biggest fucking sham. It is not natural for us. We are not designed to be monogamous. Like, what is everyone doing? We could be having our cake and eating it too. And I sort of just like launched myself into that world. Probably because I didn't trust myself. I think I'd come from like a really unhealthy pretty sort of unhappy relationship, had wound up not having the guts to actually end it because I think I was only subconsciously aware that I needed to end it. But then my pattern was that I'd go and do something unforgivable, like cheating on them, and that would end it. And I'd be like, sweet, that's done. So it was kind of like a coward's way out. This was when I was like 18. And I basically felt so guilty that after that, though, and so selfish that I could never forgive myself over it. And then I wouldn't really allow myself to get into a monogamous relationship again because I was so afraid of hurting another person and doing the same thing. Because I think I did it twice, in my teens. And I was like, fuck, I'm an awful person. I can't do monogamy. I'm just not cut out for it. It's not natural. I guess I'll do poly, when I learned that this was like a thing. But I felt like it was more traumatic than it was worth. I had fun at different times. It was great. But for me, just, I don't know whether it was, I think something that helped me untangle my conflicted emotions around it, because I was constantly struggling with it. It was always hard. It was always really painful and challenging.
I remember.
Yeah. But something that helped was like, I can't remember who said it, but I read somewhere that, maybe monogamy, humans, cave people or whatever, before agriculture, we weren't naturally monogamous. But it's like you were saying, set and setting, like that was then. The world now is not structured or set up in the way that it was then. And we don't have the sort of culture around it. We don't have the community or the societal sort of, it's all so different now that it's crazy to expect ourselves to just completely be able to drop back into this, like, pre-agricultural way of relating, even though there's no scaffolding for it. We've been conditioned by Ariel the Little Mermaid, like you mentioned, and everything in society is set up for monogamous hetero couples. So it was a bit like, hang on, like, yeah, cool, if you want to try to be polyamorous and just push yourself into really unsafe, traumatic places, go for it. But also just a reminder that, like, it's not maybe that you're failing at it, but that the way the world's set up and the way that you've been brought up and conditioned and all of that has contributed to it actually not being the most natural way for you to relate anymore. And I was like, oh, thank God, because I am exhausted. And for me personally, I eventually decided, look, fuck it. Like, it's actually more trouble than it's worth. And I really craved the security and safety of monogamy to sort of heal those wounds. But that's just for me. And I definitely feel jealousy and insecurity. Whereas a lot of people that I know that really nail it in this sort of non-monogamous world, they don't feel nearly as afflicted by that. And you know what? I never fucking felt compersion. I felt sickened when I heard about the person I love fucking someone else. So, like, yeah, I'm so, like, not able to do it. So we've got both ends of the spectrum here, because I was always fascinated by how you pulled it off, and it seemed to be the most natural way for you to relate. And I mean, you've got kids and a partner, and you're doing it, you're making it work. Is it that you've managed to find someone else who genuinely just really works that way? Or is it kind of like a continued journey of, like, battling with the jealousy and, talking yourself down from the insecurity? Like, what's the day-to-day? Hey, Babe Towns. So sorry to interrupt, but I simply had to pop my head into the lounge here and mention another virtual lounge that you've got to get around. It's the Labia Lounge Facebook group that I've created for listeners of the potty to mingle in. And there you'll find extra bits and bobs like freebies or discounts for offerings from guests who've been interviewed on the podcast, inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, and support from a community of labial legends. I also have an account on the fab new app Sunroom, which is a platform created by women for women and non-binary folk, and where there's no shadow banning or censorship of sex-positive content, unlike with the other platforms that I'm on. So you can hit up my Sunroom for extra content and real and raw life updates, because I'll be sharing on there from now on all of the stuff that I can't post anywhere else. My vision for both of these is that they become really supportive, educational, and hilarious resources for you to have more access to me and a safe space to ask questions that you can't ask anywhere else. So head over to the links in the show notes and I'll hopefully see you in there. And now, back to the episode.
Well, it can be. It's well, you say what's the day to day? It's different every day, right? I am confronted by each day as it begins, and by every moment as it happens, and the setting changes with the internal environment changes, and the conversations that happen at home, the conversations that happen with different love interest, people you meet for 1 second or, just for one moment. And with the intimate partners always changes all the time. So I like to just deal with what's in front of me. I think a lot of you mentioned that there was a struggle, maybe like anxiety and stuff. I experienced anxiety, like social anxiety a little bit, and kind of, I don't know, there's this kind of fear about the future and a lot of things. But when it comes to like relating and like there's definitely some probably anxiety around having conversations, because I feel anxiety is like a future conversation that you have with yourself or like a future image video that you play out in your mind of something that hasn't happened yet. And there's a fear or a tension or a contraction around it. And that doesn't really help at all when it comes to relating and communicating. It's just like, it's all right, what is in front of me now? And a lot of the mindfulness, a lot of the presence practices really helped with just getting present and not, and getting in a resourceful enough state to have conversations, and even, what I would say is like a really, a good blessing, I guess, is that I've found someone now who is, just as committed to not being put in any box as I am, so I think that's been helpful. So there's like, it's not even my partner, it's not even really, is it my, like we've committed to be each other's partners, but it's like, we don't even really call each other partner or girlfriend or boyfriend, or, it's like, we're just hanging out, at the moment. We have children. Like we'll probably get married at some point. This is conversations we have, and it's just it's a day to day, it's a different conversation, and wherever we're both at, and we'll communicate that, and we try to not get ahead of ourselves. We don't try, we really committed to not getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, beautiful. So like in terms of, I guess I mentioned it earlier, how like society is sort of structured for monogamous couples and so is marriage and blah, blah, blah. Do you feel like it makes it more difficult for people who want to explore non-conventional relationship styles, and like does having kids sort of make it tricky? What happens if, other parents at the school find out, or like, how do you navigate that in a world that doesn't really know how to handle the way you guys are doing things?
Yeah, for me specifically, I what do they call it? IDGAF?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that. I was like, for me personally, I don't give any fucks.
Me personally, like that's how I deal with it. Not really the most. It's like a little bit antisocial way to go about it. Not the most highly recommended kind of way, and. But like, but in terms of my partner is like probably, again, I find it difficult to talk for them, but you'd have to ask them. But like they may have more care in terms of giving more fucks, when it comes to those sorts of things. So that's, again, a conversation to be had, and how we navigate that, and we work together. And I think that's, in terms of partnership, that's the first thing that's first and foremost, is open relating, open communicating. And that's a forever game as well. Like there's parts that I have that wish to be open myself, obviously back, it's what I attracted back in the day when I was like, oh, there was obviously what I was getting was a mirror of where I'm closed in my communication and where I'm closed in my expression and sharing and caring and all the, what the parts that make relating up. And so I was like, all right, there's parts of me which I'm struggle and have contraction around with my own communication. So it's like, it's a real beautiful practice to meet that and go, all right, cool. How can I open up more? How can I go deeper? How can I be more authentic with myself? How can I create more intimacy? How can I create more safety, more trust? All of the things that make up a, healthy and expansive and fun and playful and all the joyful and fulfilling relationship, So, in terms of the people who care, like, I think going about it with like a little bit of I don't give a fuck, but also give a fuck enough about yourself and your own, what's going on at home and enough to create a healthy, happy home. I think that's number one. And that self-honesty is this really a healthy, happy situation? Like you said that it was a bit tumultuous and it wasn't healthy or happy. So you had to really be honest with yourself, right? And have that clarity and openness within yourself to actually not be deceiving yourself and, and actually try to get to the root of all love as opposed to the root of all evil, which again, self-deception is. So, something that I'll share with you actually, funnily enough, it's kind of off the thing, but when I read something the other day that I went back into some notes I was taking back when I began the whole coaching journey. I think this was 2005 or 4 that I wrote this. It was like, I wrote, what do I want when it comes to, like relationships? And I wrote that I want many, many simultaneous, strong, healthy, significant, ongoing, long-term, playful, appreciative, loving, caring, expansive relationships. With people that I value and that I enjoy, without any deception, misrepresentation, or manipulation. That was my desire. That was my goal, in terms of how I want to create a lifestyle where I'm relating to people. That's how I wanted my love life to be, my intimate connections to be, is I really wanted that many, many. It's funny, I wrote many, many. Yeah. And then I like, wow, that's what I've been living. And you've known me, throughout that and throughout my experience of that. And I think that kind of showed to me that, fuck me, I'm like, I don't even remember writing that. You know what I mean? Like, but like, I was like, what that shows to me is getting clear on what you actually want and what you desire. A lot of people don't, when I ask them, so what do you want? Like, what are you experiencing? And then what do you want? So they're having a tough time. They're having a troublesome time. They're having trouble with working out what kind of relationships they like, or they have, many ex, whatever their situation is. So what do you actually want? Like, if you get absolutely clear on what you really want, enough to just define it in a phrase or, like be able to just say it like that, then that is more important than anything else, really, like that clarity, I think, because without that, you'll continually be creating things that you're not quite clear on, or you'll be continually attracting things that are coming from the unconscious or subconscious, rather than, all right, let me bring my will to the fore and go, actually, let me create the kind of reality that I want to experience,
Well, or like also just not really being aware that there are other options and just kind of going for the prescribed way of relating. Like you said, you kind of didn't realize that was a different way to do it. So you just entered a monogamous relationship and it was sort of not disastrous, but it wasn't for you. But like, if people don't realize that they actually can choose, then they're obviously not going to be intentionally trying to create or manifest that. My ideal back in the day was literally just because I wasn't feeling compersion. I was like, well, I just want to have lots of relationships, but I don't want any of them to, like.
That's very common. That's a very common situation. You're not, like, I imagine that you've met many people who have had a similar experience. Am I correct?
Well, I think everyone wants to be the person that has multiple partners and gets them all to themselves. So it's very tricky to find someone who doesn't mind being on the other side of that. But anyway, I want to slot in the segment Get Pregnant and Die.
Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die.
Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up.
Just don't do it, promise?
So that we make sure we have time for everything. Do you have an anecdote or a story for us about how your sex ed failed you, or maybe something that you remember from that time that you found interesting or challenging? Yeah.
Failed me. I don't know. Like I don't know if this is a failure story or not, but one of the first. So I was learning like about tantra, like I mentioned earlier, and energy exchange and breath, movement, sound, and sexual energy, and how to cultivate it and explore it and expand it and transfer it between people with breath, with intention, so on and so forth, with the universe, the sky, the earth, so on and so forth, from 15, 16, 17, so on and so forth. And so like around that time I'd been, I only slept with a handful of people at that time, and it was maybe literally only one handful of people. And then I got thrust into, funnily I said thrust into a scenario where I was in a house party, northern New South Wales. You turned up at whatever time it was, say 9, 10 p.m. Went on to the next day. The sun was up. The music had slowed down. The music had, DJs had all stopped. This was one of the best, craziest, most pumping parties that I'd ever been to. And it was like the floor was almost like there was 2 levels, and the floor above was like bending, like it was like any minute now the roof was going to cave in at one point.
It's a sign of a good party.
And then it had settled down, and there was maybe over the course maybe 500 people, but it was always full. Like it was never more than 250, 300 people.
All right, where is this going? Where is this going?
Beautiful.
Cut to the chase.
So, no, well, I'm trying to get to the point of where the party was at. So there was pumping,
Okay.
and now we're at a point where everyone who didn't know, like the people whose party it was gone, right? So the party was all right, last drinks, whatever, everyone gone. And then there was maybe 50 people, 60 people left, about maybe 35, 40 females, 15, 20 guys. And then all of a sudden it was a sex party. All of a sudden, everyone getting it. Everyone, people, all sorts of configurations. And I'm this young kid who's in it. I'm like, all right. And everyone's feeling nice and after the party, kind of after party kind of thing at the party. And yeah, so I was in the middle of this mass orgy all of a sudden. And with it seemed like everyone there was like well versed in tantra as well, because we were seeing people in yab yum, and like there was just this sexual energy about the whole room. It was all confined to like this one big space in this room, and that was like from going from a handful of lovers and intimate scenarios, like different sexual experiences, to that was like, I don't know, like I guess that was a bit of an eye opener. That was more like looking at the failure of sex education or anything that society had shown me. That showed me the failure of all of that, and like, oh wow, if this is an experience that can be had between complete strangers in a beautiful, it was sacred, it was memorable, it was powerful. That changed my world and my worldview and my understanding of what was possible. So like, I guess it's not really a failure story. It was more of a failure story of what the world had, or my family, or like my role models, which I hand chose myself really. But
Well, that's a sex education story. Like at that party, you received like your first proper, like educational experience.
initiation.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yes.
Yeah. Epic. Oh my God. Wow. What a bonus surprise.
That might explain a lot of how I then, framed relationship and sexuality as a whole throughout the rest of my life, because that was one of my first kind of experiences. Like, I'm like, oh wow, this is not only possible, but a reality.
Totally. Yeah. So interesting. So, like, something that's popped into my head, speaking of Byron and the Tantra scene, I'd love to get your thoughts on this because, I sort of swam in that conscious community, neo-Tantra realm for a few years a while back. I was probably in that scene when I met you, actually. And I experienced a lot of spiritual fuckboy types who have had pretty much like taken advantage of this surge in popularity for non-monogamy, and who actually just like hid behind the label of like ethical non-monogamy to do whatever the fuck they wanted and have an excuse to put it back on the woman by gaslighting her and saying that like, oh, well, you need to do more work on yourself and like transcend jealousy and blah, blah, blah. And obviously it happened. Like, I probably did my fair share of this sort of thing, not to that degree, but in a way, because I wanted to have my cake and eat it too, but I also hadn't been mentored properly in how to do it in the most ethical way. And I was kind of just like feeling my way through it and accidentally hurting some dudes in the process. And even though I had the best intentions, like that, I'm definitely not saying it's only the spiritual fuck boys that do this. But I definitely saw a lot of that going on, and I know it still goes on a fair bit in certain communities. So, like, what are your thoughts on that whole concept of a spiritual fuckboy and the way that means they can have almost no accountability for actions that probably don't come from the best place, and I've seen it really do a lot of damage to a lot of women. Excuse the interruption, my loves, but I'm shamelessly seeking reviews and 5-star ratings for the potty because, as I'm sure you've noticed by now, it's pretty fab. And the more people who get to hear it, the more people it can help. Reviews and ratings help me curry favour with the algorithmic gods and get suggested to other listeners to check out. Plus, they make me feel really good and appreciated as I continue to pour my heart and soul into creating this baby for you. And I promise I don't mazz over them or anything. I mostly just tuck them away for a rainy day when I'm filled with self-doubt and existential dread about being self-employed, which is fairly frequently. So you see, leaving a review really does make a difference, and it's an easy little act of support that you can take in just a minute or two by either going to Spotify and leaving 5 stars for the show or writing a written review and leaving 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts. Choose your poison, or if you're a real overachiever, you could do both. Whoa now. If you are writing a review though, just be sure to only use G-rated words because despite the fact that this is a podcast about sexuality, words like sex can be censored and your review won't actually show up. Lame. Anyway, oh, what was that? Oh, you're going to go do it right now while I wait. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. May as well just quickly click that 5-star button before we get on with it and, forget about it and get on with your day. I'm hearing them roll in. I'm hearing those 5 stars. Oh my God, I make myself cringe. Anyway, thank you much, Lee. You're a total gem, and I'll let you get back to the episode now.
Yeah, well, it's first and foremost, it's like reality. It's people are going to, like I saw it a lot with the pickup community. This whole seduction community. A lot of people wanted to be players, but but they ended up becoming players. They neglected the inner game, and inner game was what I was mainly focused on and what I have been in working on self and becoming, when people call inner game, working on the inner self, the inner reality that, there's a reality on the outside that we have and there's the reality on the inside, and we kind of get reflected on the outside into what we've created and cultivated on the inside. And, essentially, I guess it's just a euphemism in a game for having a satisfied sense of self. So what you're sharing about this fuckboy phenomenon is, people coming into it with a dissatisfied sense of self, right? So people with a poorly developed personality and character, their character isn't very well developed. So They don't really feel like they truly deserve what they're experiencing. So they, all of the other symptoms that you mentioned come to the fore. So what I have focused on and what I have been espousing for many, many years is develop this to work on developing this sense of worthiness, to not only look and practice the skills and apply the principles that really do fulfill you, just to surround yourself with others who are doing the same thing and who bring that, who are being that same thing and who bring that out in you, so you can, the worthiness piece is huge. So I'd say that has been like missed a lot of people coming at it just trying to develop the personality only and forgetting to really drill deep and have the true worthiness given to themselves, because a lot of people look for the worthiness in the external world, but really it can only come from within. To truly become someone who, that when you introduce yourself and when you enter the world of another and the frame of another, that they're genuinely going to be left better off by that experience, and because you've proven that over and over again by genuinely coming from the heart, coming from a place of presence and not having any. And this kind of is coming back full circle. This is what I've focused on for so long, even in the relationship you mentioned. What do we define ourselves? It's like, well, I just meet in the moment, and it's like, what is truly going to be fulfilling for this experience right here, right now, with when I meet another. And I'm always looking to, how can I put rabbits into hats? How can I just do and be someone who is, just having a beautiful interaction, having, just doing things that make me feel good just because they feel good, doing something helpful, valuable, supportive, loving, caring for others who are in my immediate vicinity just because it feels great. And, when you talk about the fuckboy phenomenon, I don't think that's where they're coming from. They're looking to get, they're looking to take, they're looking to fill a hole,
totally.
so on and so forth. No. And don't get me wrong, I've been in those spaces myself, and I've exhibited many of these behaviors as well. So I know it intimately, and I know one feels great and one leaves you feeling and reeling from some pretty dissatisfying reactions. I'm talking like having like karmic reactions of like, all right, you take so much and you feel empty, and you still try to fill, and it still doesn't help until you come back to the center and start giving again, and you start actually filling yourself up. It's kind of counterintuitive, because you give and you create amazing experiences with other people just in a moment, just looking around your world and looking, how can I help? How can I support? How can I just do good in the world and be expansive, growth inducing in these relationships, whether it's for a second or whether it's for a year or 10 years, whatever it might be, that you start filling yourself up again. And, I think it's maybe a lack of awareness, probably a lack of awareness, a lack of presence. And that's why I keep coming back to presence, Freya. Like, that's why I've delved so deep into mindfulness and actually getting in touch with what is happening and what is real in the moment. Because without that, you can forget and get swept away by the environment, by the setting, and then God knows what might happen without actually coming back to the center and the presence.
Yeah, well, I guess on that, I'm wondering, what are some other, so mindfulness and presence for you is a big one. You do a lot of meditation and Qigong. What are some other important things to make sure that we do to navigate this stuff safely with the least amount of collateral damage? Like, because obviously it is a sort of territory that can be fraught with pitfalls and things can go bad. People can get hurt, trauma can happen, and bad behavior can occur because we're just human. So what sort of like boundaries or ground rules can be put in place, and things that we can do to help navigate it really safely and lovingly?
Yeah, well, here's a beautiful one that where did this come from? I think this was a Brian Tracy this came from Brian Tracy. I don't know where he got it from, but it's this 4 questions model. And this is with anyone. This was actually what he used between him and his wife to help them have a healthy, happy, enduring, long-term monogamous relationship, funnily enough. But it was, these questions are beautiful. It's the 4 questions. It's start, stop, keep, not. That's how I remember it. So start, stop, keep, not. So you ask, this is just literally ask your significant other, your person you're dating, whatever it might be, anyone you're looking to see over time, because it works well to ask them weekly or monthly or whatever it might be. The first question you can ask is there anything that I'm doing, is there anything that I'm not doing that you'd like me to start doing? So that's first question, start doing. So is there anything that currently that I'm not doing, any behavior that I'm not exhibiting that you'd like me to start exhibiting? Second question, is there anything that I am already doing that you'd like me to stop doing? So is there anything you aren't enjoying, isn't fulfilling, is hurtful, is not caring, so on and so forth? Is there anything that I'm doing that you'd like me to keep doing? That's keep. So is there stuff that I am doing that you'd like me to keep doing? And then the last one is there anything that I'm not doing that you'd like me to keep not doing?
I love this.
Because it's great that you're not doing it. So, all right, cool. You can actually get into the other person's mind of your behaviors being reflected, and you can actually now become the mirror, right? And you are seeing what it's like to be the experiencer of you, and so that's a beautiful framework that you can work in. But the important ground rule, what you mentioned, or the boundary that you want to keep with this one is, it can be triggering. It can be hurtful to hear the answers sometimes. Oh shit, it's not a invitation to start a fight. It's not an invitation to say you're wrong. It's not an invitation. It's just, you really have to work on being present, listening, detachedly, when you hear the answers to these, because a lot of it will be triggering. It will be, so, having a nice space where you agree, maybe setting up some agreements. All right, I'm just going to listen. If I get charged, I'll just breathe through it, or I'll let you know that I'm getting charged. But it's really when you're asking these questions, because some people might even lie to you because you don't want to hurt their feelings. Oh, there's something you're not doing. So, have some agreements. I'll be truthful as I can. I'll, and really not take this personally. I'll do my best to remain detached, but also, just be here for you. So you might do this for 6 months and nothing changes. Or you might do this for, so it's a really beautiful signal that actually that you're the wrong person in the right seat. Or, if you look at a relationship as an organization, which I often do, it's like, all right, well, this person obviously doesn't want this job because they're not changing any behaviors, or they're not starting to do it. Do you know what I mean? So then you can just part ways, like amicably, and go, actually, let's find someone who is exhibiting behavior change, and this is love. Like when you change behavior for yourself, for other, to create a more beautiful space, more fulfilling space, this is actually love in action. So that's a beautiful one that has helped me immensely throughout my past relationships and current relationships as well. Another one which I come back to is just be real honest with yourself, radical honesty with self, avoid self-deception and escapism at all costs, and really be on high alert for escapist behaviors and contraction and running away and avoiding, and really commit to being really honest with self, because without that, you can't be honest with other, so know thyself, be thyself, love thyself. This is what the Oracle said, right? So that is committing to that, to knowing the self, getting the knowledge of self, so you know what you really like, what you really love, and then be thyself. If you be yourself, the more and more you be yourself, the more comfortable, authentic you'll be with everyone, and the more you'll attract that. And then when you know that, you can actually love the self and allow yourself to go beyond yourself for another, an other, and then you can create a loving space. So those are some things that are, I guess, practical, and yeah, like. That can just create beautiful things, because the more you know, the more you can communicate. Hey, what do you like? And just try things and be playful and curious and open, Not getting butt hurt helps as well. I think it's like developing the not a tough skin, but just the ability to feel however you want to feel and be however you want to be, and create, I guess, giving that to another. If you can really create that space where you can allow that in another, you kind of get that back as a result. You know, if we want to feel something, give it to another.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of a conversation I had with James Gill, Fish, which I feel as though hearing him talk, I was like, okay, I feel as though a lot of his approach is based in nonviolent communication, but he's just an incredible coach and facilitator. And we did an episode on conflict resolution and communication around kind of crunchy topics in relationships. So I highly recommend everyone go listen to that. It's one of my favorite episodes. And as you were talking, I was thinking, yeah, holy shit, it's one thing to like know the start, stop, keep, not framework. Fucking love that, by the way. Definitely going to use that. I feel like I've heard that before and then promptly forgotten about it. But it's another thing to actually be able to nail it. Yeah, probably. And like if you kind of listen to the episode on conflict resolution and communication, there's a lot of like tools and approaches in there around how to communicate about these things that might actually have you feeling pretty butthurt, and that's okay. But it's that episode's pretty helpful for that. And then the other thing that sprung to mind was when you are going to be having these conversations where you might hear something that you don't like hearing, or you might feel a bit charged or challenged. And obviously we often just we automatically jump on the defensive when we hear something coming from a partner that, you know, they don't like that we're doing or whatever. I did an episode with Charlie and Shelley Wininger on MDMA for couples, and that drug used to be called empathy, and it was like originally used as a couples therapy drug because it helps us step out of that like sort of wounding and that defensiveness and into the empathy and the other person's shoes. And so we can actually hear things and receive information without taking it personally and getting really upset about it in such a constructive way that we can then have like proper conversations. So not just sort of recommending everyone go out and take MD, but listen to the episode, maybe listen to both of those episodes. They're very topical. They're very complementary to what we're chatting about now. And the other thing I wanted to circle back to was because I mentioned ground rules, and I'm curious about the sort of ones that you generally have. I know it will be different with different dynamics and different partners. The ones that I remember being really important to me were like, okay, use protection, use condoms, and I don't want you to have a relationship with someone that I know that's in our close friendship circle. I had like a primary partner generally, so like a primary partner, and then other connections sort of fell into, and a lot of people don't like having that sort of hierarchy, which I get, but it was a bit like, okay, so the primary partner takes priority, and if they're not comfortable with certain things, then I take their lead, and that's who I'm kind of making sure I'm looking after first and foremost. And then the other connections that I had were sort of secondary to that. And yeah, there was sort of ground rules in place like that meant, you know, and I know some friends of mine have a really beautiful marriage, and they have an open marriage, and their ground rule is like no one that we know and only 3 dates max, because then it starts getting emotionally involved and they only want it to be sexual. So there's just some examples of like different ground rules that you can have that might suit your particular relationship. And I'm wondering, what kind of ground rules do you have, or do you want to suggest people have a look at?
Well, it's going to be case by case, isn't it? So this is why I just circle back to being real clear on what it is that is true to you, you know, knowing thyself. Because if you don't know yourself, you're just going to come up with some rules that you heard, you know, Freya and Zulu say. And then you know, I mean,
some of them are good ones though, the universal ones, you know, like wear dingers, it's safer. Like I feel like some ground rules you can safely say.
Just like that's something that is just logical and wise, you know. Be real honest with yourself, you know. There's some people who are like, I don't have sex unless it's without condoms. You know what I mean? So like people who really are honest with themselves with that, at least they're honest with themselves with that, and then they communicate it. You know what I mean? And then someone knows, all right, they're an X. It's not a yes for me. You know, so just being really honest with themselves. So for me, it's that for one. For me, is just like sexual hygiene. You know, like I think having the title and the role is probably one for me. Like knowing what a title is and being clear on that. You know, so if I'm have the title of boyfriend or girlfriend or partner, you know, I look at that as maybe like a capital P or, you know, capital BF. And then I can have the other, you know, if you want some other partners, they can be little BF or, you know, little, you know, they're my lovers or something. Just knowing what titles and then just defining the roles. Again, looking at it like, all right, is all the duties of that role taken care of before you then go and look at those, the sub roles which are under. You mentioned, you know, primary and secondary. That's an easy way to look at it, but there might be different names for those. You might not like the terms primary, secondary, but they essentially define similar kind of ideas, you know. So being really clear and knowing what it is and changing language and deciding for yourself what it is you really would like to experience. I think this is first and foremost, you know, and I think sometimes being okay with, like, just because I don't, for instance, just because I am compassionate, you know, I'm someone who loves to witness those who I love and enjoy to be, you know, experiencing pleasure and enjoyment in whatever way they like, doesn't mean that I have to then project that onto another and have them be the same. If someone wants to only be with me, that's fine. But I do encourage them to not look at me as their only source of sexual intimacy or pleasure, you know, because that's a surefire way, in my experience, for resentment to build or for just like unreasonable expectation more so, you know. It's just like, well, this is what I can, you know, being, again, it comes back to knowing yourself and being
what
real
you can
with
offer,
what you are able and what you're capable of actually following through with, you know. If you're not clear on that, that's where the trouble happens. So again, getting really clear on what it is you're capable of and being radically honest with yourself, because that's where I see people trip up, is they want to, they love the idea, they would love to, then they experience it, then there's all this turmoil they can't deal with. And it's oftentimes, it's a lot easier, quote unquote, to be monogamous because there's less balls to juggle, if you will. It's just logically more difficult to juggle 4 or 5 balls, right? You know, so like it's you know, it takes a lot of work and a lot of communication, a lot of safety and a lot of trust building and a lot of conflict resolution and a lot of honesty and a lot of discomfort to grow into a space where you can healthily, happily, lovingly, caringly, you know. This is another concept of the caring relating, or, you know, or this kind of the different types of relating that people often can fall into or display. You know, this is the people, you know, the walking on eggshells type. I think they have a term for it where it's like, I think it's like fawn response, or like this idea of taking care of others, people pleasing. This whole stuff is like, oh, I don't want to upset the other person, and this is like a careful type of exactly. This is like a careful type relating. This is when people put other people's values higher above than their own, and then they dismiss their own values and then pedestal other people's values, and they really want to make sure those around them get looked after. This is a careful type of relating. The opposite of that, the other spectrum of that, is this idea of your values are way more important than everyone else, and it's this kind of a narcissistic, it's this kind of domineering. This can, if you know, look into go onto the spectrum, it's like where rape and stuff happens, is where like my values are more important to yours, and this is a careless relating type, you know. So you can look, the other option is to, you know, weigh up your values and communicate them in terms of the other person's values. And this is what that framework of the start, stop, keep, not kind of really beautifully puts into practice is like, all right, what are my values? What are your values? How can we meet somewhere in the middle? And how can I give you that while still respecting my values and still ensuring that you're getting your values met? And this is the caring type of relating. So you can have a look at things in this kind of framework and then see just what the behaviors are. So this type of stuff is helpful just to really give you a reality on what's happening and get you clearer on and how to be even more honest with yourself and how to deceive yourself less and less, because we're all deceiving ourselves at some point because there's parts of us that are in unconsciousness, right? So it's bringing those unconsciousness pieces to the light. And this is where a relationship is beautiful, because this is when we can have these conversations and be in a safe space and create a safe space where we're free to do so, and we're held and loved, and no matter what, we come, how ugly, how hurtful, how ashamed, how whatever we're feeling, and we're accepted and loved nonetheless, beautiful things can happen. So I think creating spaces where, I think having a date night or a date day or a date week or a date month, where we're committed to just hanging out with our partner and giving them that time and space and energy where we're working with just being together and seeing what happens or whatever you guys want to do, I think is ultimately very helpful. It has been in my experience.
Totally. Yeah, so beautiful. God, I just don't know how anyone would find the time, to be honest. But got my hands full with just one person. I used to totally have like a bit of a roster going though. Like back in the day, I feel like I could never manage more than like 4 or 5. It would always just maintain an equilibrium around that number. And anytime I was trying to date more than that amount of people, someone would fall off and make room for a new person to come in. And it was like so messed up. My friend and I would call it a roster basically. And that was, I guess, me trying to be like this sort of, I'm an empowered woman and I fucking have sex for pleasure and I use men for their bodies, whatever. But like also that was super toxic. So just gonna, flag that.
And you can create that in a really beautiful way as well. If you really like that. So if that's what you want to, again, I would look at that and say there was a lack of clarity on what you actually wanted to experience.
Yeah, totally. So I would love to, just before we wrap up, I'd love to grab some, I guess you've laid out a few really great frameworks and some tips and stuff. But I'd love to get another couple of little tips and suggestions for people that are curious to explore ethical non-monogamy and resources and things like that. But just before we do that, can we do the segment TMI?
TMI, we love it. Said TMI, we love it.
Too much information. Too much information. Give me a prompt.
I mean, people often give sex stories or I guess things that you it's tricky though. I was just talking to Elena, who I did an episode on libido about literally just last night, and I was like, look, if you are in this industry, every day you talk about TMI stuff and it's very hard to like even separate like what's not normal to talk about because it's all on the table for us, like vagina ladies. So I don't know how to prompt you other than I guess I one that popped into my head earlier when you were talking was like a TMI on your behalf because you're talking about like tantra and the breathing practices and blah, blah, blah. You are, and I know you'll be fine with me sharing this and otherwise I'll cut it out, but you're the only person, or actually no, maybe 1 or 2 others, but you're the main person I've ever met who can have like a full body energetic orgasm without ejaculating.
I'm feeling it just as you're talking about it. So it's
so you can talk about that.
That's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're super sensitive, and it's like this very, very outwardly expressive, full fucking orgasmic experience, but no jizz comes out. So like that might be a new concept to people. You could chat about that.
Yeah, too much information. I am highly. What do they call it in the neo tantra these days? I think there's a catchphrase or there's a buzzword.
I'm not really in that scene anymore.
I can't think of it. Yeah, it's like I'm very sensitive and very.
You're a multi-orgasmic man. Is that it?
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm it's like there is a word that I've seen it and heard it many times. I just can't recall it right now. But it's I am definitely highly sensitive to all things really. I'm sensitive guy. I'm a sensitive new age guy. That's really.
A snag?
I think that term is like pre 2000, right? I don't know. That was showing my age, right? But yeah, I love pleasure. I love experiencing. Again, it probably comes back to that idea of the full potential. I love that creating a space and facilitating a space where the full potential comes out. So like, and gets embodied, expressed, actualized, realized, and felt in a real world. So it's like continually opening myself to that. And like anything, it takes a practice, Freya. So like, I nerd out on anything that feels good. I'm highly hedonistic kind of person too. I love anything pleasurable, really. Like if it feels good, let's go. You know what I mean? So I'm just diving straight in, and I then bring my nerd mind to it, and like, how do I master this thing? I want to go deep. So like, yeah, any skill that brings pleasure, that brings you pleasure, the listener pleasure, I'd highly recommend delving deep, because that shit feels amazing. Like you can, not only feels amazing, but like I feel like it's healing. It's like when you can disappear and into like oneness, like by yourself or with another. Like here's something, too much information. Sometimes I take myself out on a date, and the date might last, like I'll go out, I'll go watch a movie, I'll go, and then I'll literally just like go home, have a bath, love on myself, and then literally self-pleasure for like, I think the longest time of self-pleasure for is like 24 hours. Just like edging.
What
Yeah,
the
like, seriously,
fuck? Did you have a snack break?
Like always just snacks and food, like, but like
Oh
just
my
like food
God.
and drink around, but like, make myself a meal, obviously toilet break and whatnot, but like, but like all without ejaculating, but just like just cultivating pleasure, and then all right, cool, then I'll have a big long sleep. Obviously 24 hours is a long time to be awake for, right? But like, yeah, I highly recommend extending, and just, I just think it's enjoyable for myself. It's something that I like to do. But like, yeah, there's a part of that is helpful, or it's like self-love in practice, you know what I mean? Like self-care, and it's like just going beyond just to like a release. A lot of people just want to release, and I feel that in myself, and I'm big on, myself, like fasting for ridiculous amounts of time, and I like, so I do just love these kind of challenges and such. So like, yeah, if you're, I think it's helpful for discipline. It's helpful for my willpower to really get my that, because those sexual energies and sexual centers, below the sacrum, are really powerful and can really grab you and want you to spill over the edge and want you to just like take control and it's the basal brain. So I think it's,
primal.
For me personally, it's a way that I'd like to develop the frontal cortex and bring that real, like executive mind on board, so that's a way. It might sound like too much information, but oftentimes it'll be 4 hours, 6 hours, 3 hours, 8 hours sessions where I'm self-pleasuring because why not? Why the fuck not? If you got the time, these days with the kids and stuff, it doesn't happen as much, but
Totally. Oh, wow. Epic.
Definitely extending, having extended masturbation, self-pleasure time is fucking amazing. It's probably something that nobody knows about me. So it's
dope. Love that.
A handful of people. So now the world knows.
Oh,
Zulu,
epic.
the fucking wanker.
So
fucking
good.
wanker. You can call me a
24-hour
wanker.
wanker. Get
I'll
it.
own it.
I love it. Oh my God. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up, but do you have any kind of like tips or resources or parting words for people that are curious to explore non-monogamy in like a mature, ethical, functional, beautiful, loving way? Hey, me again. If you'd like to support the potty and you've already given it 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on, I want to mention that you can buy some really dope merch from the website and get yourself a Labia Lounge tote, tee, togs. Yep, you heard that right. I even have Labia Lounge bathers. Or a cute fanny pack if that'd blow your hair back. So if fashion isn't your passion, though, you can donate to my Buy Me a Coffee donation page, which is actually called Buy Me a Soy Chai Latte, because I'll be the first to admit I'm a bit of a Melbourne cafe tosser like that. And yes, that is my coffee order. You can do a once-off donation or an ongoing membership and sponsor me for as little as 3 fat ones a month. And I also have a Sunroom profile over on the Sunroom app, as I've mentioned. And I also offer one-on-one coaching and online courses that'll help you level up your sex life and relationship with yourself and others in a really big way. So every bit helps, because it ain't cheap to put out a sweet podcast into the world every week out of my own pocket. So I will be undyingly grateful if you support me and my biz financially in any of these ways. And if you like, I'll even give you a mental BJ with my mind from the lounge itself. Saucy. And I'll pop the links in the show notes. Thank you. Later.
I would say just the one thing, Freya, is like this is one probably the most common mistake and thing that trips people up when it comes to non-exclusive, non-monogamous, variable relating dynamics is a neglect to build community and to have a supportive community and to have a support network around. This is the biggest failure that I see, is just trying to do it alone, trying to just introduce others by yourself, trying to just be the one person's support person. It just see failure and pain and hurt and toxicity, and so much can happen from there. So number one is, if you're going to delve down this realm, is have a support network. There's counselors, there's non-monogamous specific counselors out there. There's plenty of resources, there's plenty of Instagram pages, there's plenty of TikTok pages, so on and so forth, where you can start building, start looking at community, start making friends, and getting mentors, getting people who've done it before, and funnily enough, you might be similar, but a lot of the mentors that I know, not a lot of them, but a bunch of them, have now reverted to monogamy, after doing it for 40 years. They're like, wow, this is so much. I'm just over it. But a handful of them have, but having, I wouldn't say reverted, I like chosen monogamy, so, that number one thing is have a support network, delve deep, do your research, be honest with yourself, and, don't try to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's really great advice. And it is a tricky thing because it's less common and sometimes it's shunned or stigmatized or judged. And so it can be tricky to find that community, especially depending on what area you're in. But you've got the internet now. So, awesome.
I want to have
this conversation.
I want to have this conversation with some Muslim friends or some in Afghanistan or something. This will be amazing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, holy shit. All right, well, I'll leave that to you. I have no interest in having those conversations anymore, especially with people that don't want to fucking hear it. But I've loved this conversation, and thank you for, just sharing so openly and vulnerably about your experience. And I'm going to pop all of your links and where to find you online and how to work with you and things like that in the show notes and on the gram. So thank you so much. It's been a blast.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad we got all of our technical issues sorted and our diaries synchronized finally. I really appreciate it.
Holy shit. It's been a year in the works. Oh my God. All right.
It's so great to see you doing your thing.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
Thanks for having me.
And that's it, darling hearts. Thank you for stopping by the Labia Lounge. Your bum groove in the couch will be right where you left it, just waiting for you to sink back in for some more double L action next time. And in the meantime, if you'd be a dear and subscribe, share this episode, or leave a review on iTunes, then you can pat yourself on the snatch, because that, my dear, is a downright act of sex-positive feminist activism. And you'd be supporting my vision to educate, empower, demystify, and destigmatize with this here podcast. Also, I'm always open to feedback, topic ideas that you'd love to hear covered, or guest suggestions. So feel free to get in touch via my website at freyagraph.com or say hey over on Insta. My handle is Freya_graph_YMT, and I seriously hope you're following me on there, because damn, we have fun. We have fun. Anyway, later labial legends. I'll see you next time.